Rewire for Riches: Break the Beliefs That Keep You Broke. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. The rich are not lucky, they're wired differently. The person drowning in debt and the millionaire next door often share more in common than you think. Both have habits. Both have beliefs. Both follow unconscious scripts. The difference isn't intelligence, opportunity, or even effort. It's wiring. This book isn't about how to budget harder or hustle longer. You've tried that. Most do. But until the internal code is rewritten, external strategies bounce off like rain on armor. What's keeping you broke isn't just your income or expenses, it's your mind's operating system, silently running outdated instructions on a loop. Every financial decision you make, every moment of guilt at the register, every hesitation to raise your rates, every time you say "I'm just not good with money," is not random. It's rooted in programming you didn't choose. But you can change it. Inside these pages, you won't just find insights. You'll find a path to rewire the mental scripts, emotional triggers, and identity layers that silently sabotage financial progress. You'll learn to think, choose, and act like someone who belongs to abundance, not as a fantasy, but as a new default. As speaker and psychologist Les Brown once said, too many of us are not living our dreams because we are living our fears. And nowhere is that truer than with money. You don't need to earn more to live differently. You need to think differently, then act from that place. Rewiring for Riches isn't about becoming someone new. It's about removing everything you were taught to believe that kept you small. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Hidden War in Your Wallet. Tyrell did everything right. He had a degree, a steady job, and an above-average work ethic. Yet every month ended in overdraft fees, maxed-out credit cards, and the quiet shame of saying no to social plans. No matter how hard he tried, his bank account never seemed to reflect his effort. His story is not rare, it's reality for millions. And it has less to do with financial education and more to do with invisible wiring. Most people believe money problems are caused by external factors: inflation, a low-paying job, and unexpected expenses. But beneath the surface, a deeper culprit exists, one that silently manipulates financial outcomes like a puppet master. It's not laziness or lack of intelligence. It's internal programming. Every person walks around with a subconscious blueprint about what money means, who they are in relation to it, and what is or isn't possible. This blueprint was formed before they ever held a paycheck, shaped by voices that said things like "money doesn't grow on trees," or "rich people are selfish." These weren't just words, they were data points your nervous system filed away as truth. This subconscious programming forms belief loops, repetitive, automatic thoughts that act like invisible software. These loops can make a person sabotage financial opportunities, procrastinate on wealth-building actions, or tolerate chronic underearning. And because this sabotage feels so familiar, so normal, it often goes unquestioned. Tyrell didn't know it, but he was waging war against an enemy embedded inside his own mind. This isn't philosophical fluff. Neuroscience confirms that up to 95% of our behaviors are driven by subconscious patterns. The conscious mind reads a personal finance book and wants change. The subconscious mind steers you back to the familiar. It doesn't matter how much you earn if your internal code is designed to repel abundance. Many people unknowingly live in financial patterns that mirror their childhood environments. If money meant tension, shame, or secrecy growing up, the adult brain associates wealth with danger. If scarcity were normalized, then thriving feels unsafe. The brain is wired for survival, not success, and if success feels foreign, it's rejected. Understanding this doesn't excuse poor choices, but it does explain them. You're not weak, you're wired. And like any operating system, this wiring can be reprogrammed. But the first step is awareness. You must locate the war before you can disarm the weapons. Start paying attention to the money narratives you carry. Notice the internal commentary when you get a bill, talk about investing, or dream about earning more. Do you hear fear? Doubt? Dismissal? These are clues, breadcrumbs pointing to belief loops that run the show. Rewiring these patterns is not about toxic positivity or pretending to be rich. It's about upgrading outdated software so your brain supports, rather than sabotages, your financial potential. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your internal programming. And right now, that programming might be keeping you broke. There is a hidden war in your wallet, but you don't have to stay on the losing side. By decoding the beliefs beneath your behavior, you reclaim the power to shift your financial destiny. This book will not ask you to hustle harder or shame your past. It will show you how to rewire your mind, so wealth becomes inevitable, not accidental. And that begins by asking a brave question: who taught you what money means? Subconscious belief loops drive most financial behavior. Your current results reflect your internal programming, not your potential. Awareness is the first step toward rewiring your financial identity. What beliefs about money did you absorb before the age of 10? Observe your inner dialogue around money today. Write down any automatic thoughts you notice. They're not random, they're revealing. Chapter 2: You were programmed for poverty. Picture a 5-year-old girl standing in the cereal aisle, clutching a colorful box with wide eyes. Her mother snaps, "Put it back. We don't have money for that junk." The tone is sharp, the tension thick. In that moment, the child learns something crucial, not about cereal, but about money. It's stressful. It causes anger. And it disappears just when you want something. That lesson sinks in deeper than any classroom lecture on personal finance ever will. Most people don't realize their financial blueprint was installed long before they earned their first dollar. The brain is most impressionable between birth and age 7. During these years, the subconscious absorbs beliefs without a filter, forming mental shortcuts that become the default operating system in adulthood. If money was a source of stress, shame, or silence in childhood, those associations become embedded, shaping how that person thinks, feels, and behaves around money for life. What's more troubling is how invisible this programming is. Few adults stop to ask, "Where did I learn what I believe about money?" But those lessons were everywhere, at the dinner table, in overheard arguments, on television, in religious teachings, and in casual comments like "people like us don't get ahead." These weren't just moments, they were scripts. Repeated enough, they formed neural pathways that now fire automatically. This subconscious conditioning becomes especially dangerous because it feels like common sense. People don't question it. If you grew up hearing money is tight, or rich people are corrupt, your brain coded wealth as unsafe or immoral. So even if you consciously want abundance, part of your nervous system sees it as a threat. That's why some people sabotage raises, ignore investment opportunities, or downplay their worth. They're not broken, they're loyal to childhood conditioning. The programming isn't always verbal. Sometimes it's emotional. A parent's anxious glance when paying bills. The tension in the room when unexpected expenses hit. The guilt of asking for new shoes. These moments carry emotional weight, which the brain stores as implicit memory. Decades later, the adult still flinches at spending money or undercharges for their work, not because it's rational, but because it's familiar. What makes this even more complex is the culture around money silence. Many households treat financial topics as taboo, breeding secrecy and misinformation. Children left in the dark fill in the blanks with assumptions. Assumptions become beliefs. Beliefs become patterns. Patterns become destiny, unless interrupted. But here's the truth: just because you were programmed for poverty doesn't mean you're sentenced to it. The brain's plasticity means it can change. You can write over old code. But first, you must confront it. That means becoming a detective in your own life, tracing back the money messages you absorbed and questioning their validity. Ask yourself, what were the unspoken rules about money in your home? What emotions surrounded financial conversations? Who did you watch model scarcity or excess? These questions aren't about blame, they're about clarity. Until you identify the script, you can't rewrite it. Wealth isn't just earned, it's allowed. And the allowance starts internally. If your subconscious is wired to associate money with pain, fear, or guilt, no financial strategy will stick. That's why knowledge alone doesn't transform people. The beliefs underneath must be unearthed and upgraded. You were programmed for poverty, but that programming is not your personality. It's a learned operating system, one that can be rewritten. The key is awareness followed by deliberate replacement. Your financial reality is not just about numbers, it's about narratives. And the most dangerous ones are the ones you never realized you believed. Early money experiences create subconscious beliefs that shape adult financial behavior. Poverty programming is usually invisible, emotional, and inherited. You can't change what you don't first identify and question. What are 3 money messages you learned as a child that you now realize were limiting? Write down one early memory involving money that felt emotional, good, or bad. Ask, what belief might I have formed from that moment? Chapter 3: Myths that keep you broke. Some beliefs are so widely accepted that they feel like facts. Money is the root of all evil. More money, more problems. If I just work hard, I'll eventually get rich. These phrases echo through families, classrooms, churches, and media, shaping financial behavior like invisible puppet strings. But just because something is common doesn't mean it's true. And some of the most damaging ideas about money are the ones we never think to question. Myths operate below the level of logic. They're culturally reinforced, emotionally charged, and often disguised as wisdom. Over time, they become internalized scripts that run silently in the background, steering decisions, shaping identity, and setting financial ceilings. These myths don't just limit earning, they distort your relationship with wealth itself. One of the most corrosive myths is the belief that rich people are greedy or unethical. This idea creates an unconscious moral divide: wealth equals corruption, poverty equals virtue. If your mind holds this belief, even subtly, then every attempt to earn more triggers an identity crisis. You'll either sabotage the wealth or abandon your values, because holding both feels impossible. The result? Stagnation. Financial success never feels fully safe. Another myth says, I'm just not good with money. It sounds innocent, even self-aware. But it's actually a neurological trap. The brain listens to repeated language and uses it to automate behavior. Say something enough times, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe you're bad with money, you'll avoid managing it, learning about it, or growing it. That avoidance creates poor outcomes, which reinforce the belief. The cycle becomes a closed loop. A third myth that keeps people broke is the glorification of struggle. Many are taught that suffering is a badge of honor, and that earning money easily is suspect. Hard work is noble, yes, but when effort becomes the only acceptable path, people unconsciously reject opportunities that feel too easy. Passive income, automation, or receiving help can trigger guilt or discomfort. Wealth is then pursued only through burnout and grind, which makes it unsustainable. There's also the myth that money changes people. In reality, money reveals more than it changes. It amplifies existing traits. A kind person with money has more capacity to give. A selfish person without money would likely be selfish with it, too. But if you fear becoming someone you dislike, your mind will block wealth before it arrives. You'll miss chances, delay growth, or shrink your goals, not out of laziness, but out of misplaced self-protection. These myths are dangerous not because they're shouted, but because they're whispered. They live in half-jokes, throwaway lines, and subtle shaming. They're passed down like heirlooms, unexamined and unchallenged. And they can shape your financial trajectory more than any budgeting app or investment strategy. The first step to breaking free is to drag these myths into the light. Myths lose power when they're exposed to reason and reality. Neuroscience shows that when a belief is challenged with emotionally salient evidence, the brain begins to rewire. That means it's not enough to say, I don't believe that anymore. You must actively replace the myth with a new, empowering truth, and then reinforce it with repetition and action. Your money mindset was not written in stone. It was written in pencil. And every myth that once limited you can be edited, erased, and rewritten. Wealth doesn't require you to become someone else. It requires you to challenge who you were told you had to be. Cultural money myths operate like silent scripts that sabotage financial growth. These beliefs feel like facts but are often inherited, irrational, and fear-based. Replacing myths with empowered truths is essential to rewiring your money mindset. Which money myth has felt the most true in your life, and where do you think it came from? Choose one limiting money belief you've held. Write its opposite, empowered version, and read it aloud 3 times today. Chapter 4: The Neuroscience of Scarcity Thinking. Imagine being so preoccupied with rent that you forget to pay a traffic ticket, which turns into a fine, which leads to more stress and eventually, suspension of your license. This isn't poor planning, it's the neurological tax of scarcity. Research from Harvard shows that scarcity doesn't just hurt financially, it lowers cognitive function. The human brain, when consumed with not enough time, money, and resources, literally becomes less capable of long-term planning and sound decision-making. The brain under scarcity operates differently. When it perceives a lack, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, activates and floods the system with cortisol. This stress hormone diverts energy from the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, focus, and forward thinking. In survival mode, the brain favors short-term solutions over long-term strategy. This is why people under financial stress might take payday loans, skip savings, or binge spend. It's not stupidity, it's neurology. Scarcity thinking trains the brain to focus narrowly. The tunnel vision it creates blinds people to options, opportunities, and creative problem solving. Even when solutions are available, they can't be seen. The world shrinks down to the next bill, the next meal, the next emergency. This mental compression is exhausting, and it reinforces a belief that there's never enough. The mind becomes a closed loop of threat detection, not possibility creation. This loop becomes especially dangerous when it's chronic. If you've spent years in financial stress, your nervous system adapts to scarcity as the default state. Even when income increases, the emotional baseline remains. The person still feels broke, still acts broke, and still makes decisions from fear. That's why lottery winners often return to poverty. The external money changes, but the internal wiring remains untouched. Without rewiring, the brain finds its way back to the familiar dysfunction. Scarcity also impacts self-perception. When the brain is under threat, it makes global judgments about identity. I'm irresponsible. I'll never get ahead. These are not just thoughts, they're neurological grooves. Repeated often enough, they become part of the brain's default network, a structure associated with self-referencing and memory. The person begins to identify with lack, making abundance feel foreign, even dangerous. Any move toward growth becomes an emotional risk. The good news is that the brain is not fixed. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, means that with consistent practice, scarcity thinking can be replaced by abundance patterns. But this isn't done with wishful thinking. The brain needs felt safety. That means reducing stress, regulating emotion, and building internal evidence that more is possible. You don't talk your way out of scarcity. You rewire your way out through deliberate repetition and emotional engagement. This rewiring starts by interrupting the scarcity loop. That might mean using breath work to calm the nervous system, creating a gratitude practice to shift focus, or journaling to bring unconscious fears into the light. These aren't soft habits, they're hard rewiring tools. They tell the brain, you are not in crisis. You are safe to expand. Scarcity is not just a financial condition, it's a neurological state. And unless that state is addressed, no amount of budgeting, working, or earning will bring peace. People don't just need more money. They need more mental bandwidth, more calm, more vision. Wealth begins when the brain is no longer at war with itself. The next time you find yourself obsessing over a bill or fearing the worst, pause. That panic is not the truth, it's wiring. And wiring can be changed. Your brain is powerful enough to create scarcity. It's also powerful enough to rewire for abundance. Scarcity thinking reduces cognitive function and decision-making ability. Chronic financial stress wires the brain to identify with lack. Rewiring begins by creating felt safety and interrupting neurological scarcity loops. When you're under financial pressure, what thoughts or behaviors show up that reflect scarcity wiring? Pause 3 times today to take 5 deep, conscious breaths when you feel financial stress. Signal safety to your nervous system and watch your thinking expand. Chapter 5: How beliefs become bank accounts. Beliefs are not just private thoughts. They are instructions to the brain, scripts that shape perception, emotion, and behavior. Over time, these scripts become habits, and those habits create outcomes. This is how an invisible belief becomes a visible bank balance. It starts in the mind but ends in reality. Consider a person who believes they're unworthy of wealth. That belief doesn't sit idle. It creates emotional discomfort around money. When presented with a raise, a sales opportunity, or a new investment, their nervous system doesn't feel excitement, it feels a threat. That discomfort triggers hesitation, avoidance, or even self-sabotage. The brain, prioritizing emotional safety over financial growth, shuts down the very behaviors that would build wealth. It's not the lack of opportunity that blocks them, it's the internal filter. That filter is built from beliefs, and those beliefs act like lenses over the eyes. A person who believes money is hard to keep will unconsciously spend impulsively, reject abundance, or fail to set boundaries around income. Another who believes I always get by may never reach beyond survival because their identity is anchored to just enoughness. These loops become reinforced through what psychologists call the belief-behavior-result cycle. A belief shapes behavior. The behavior produces a result. The result then confirms the belief. If someone believes they're bad with money, they'll avoid learning about it. That avoidance leads to poor decisions. The resulting debt or chaos becomes proof. See, I knew I wasn't good with money. The cycle closes and repeats. But the most dangerous part of this loop is that it feels logical. When a belief has been validated by enough lived experience, it becomes unquestioned. The person no longer sees it as a story, they see it as truth. The problem is, the story came first. The results only followed. Most people think their beliefs are based on their lives. But in reality, their life is based on their beliefs. This process happens at the neurological level. Every repeated thought strengthens the associated neural pathway. The brain favors efficiency, so it reinforces what's familiar, not what's optimal. Over time, it creates a kind of cognitive autopilot, thoughts and behaviors that feel automatic. Unless that automation is interrupted, financial outcomes remain stuck in old scripts, no matter how much external effort is applied. Transformation happens when that loop is broken. It begins with awareness, seeing the pattern. Then it moves into intentional disruption, choosing new thoughts, backed by new actions. The brain can't just think differently, it must experience differently. A new behavior, even if small, creates a different emotional and neurological feedback loop. That loop, repeated, becomes a new default. For example, someone who believes I'm not good with numbers might start reviewing their bank account daily, not to judge, but to build familiarity. That small act begins rewiring confidence. Over time, the identity shifts from I avoid money to I manage money. The shift didn't begin with numbers. It began with beliefs. Your financial life is a mirror, reflecting the beliefs you carry, often silently, unconsciously, and persistently. If your bank account feels like it's mocking you, it's not just a math problem. It's a mirror revealing what your subconscious has been instructed to expect. But mirrors can be cleaned, and instructions can be rewritten. You are not doomed to the results of your past beliefs. You are invited to rewrite them, to shift not just your thoughts, but your identity, your behavior, and eventually, your reality. Beliefs shape behavior, behavior creates results, and results reinforce beliefs. Financial outcomes often reflect subconscious identity, not conscious intention. Rewiring begins with new beliefs supported by consistent, embodied action. What belief about money do you keep proving true through your actions, even if you wish it weren't? Notice one small financial behavior today and ask, what belief is driving this? Then choose one small action that would reflect a new, empowering belief. Chapter 6: Emotional Triggers That Drain Wealth. Money is rarely just about numbers. It's about meaning, memory, and emotion. Beneath every impulse purchase, every undercharged invoice, every ignored savings plan, there is a feeling. Fear, guilt, shame, rebellion, unworthiness, these emotional triggers don't announce themselves logically. They operate like reflexes, guiding financial behavior in ways that seem irrational from the outside but make perfect sense to the subconscious mind trying to stay safe. Emotions are the body's response to perception. And perception is shaped by past experience. If a person grew up hearing arguments about bills, they may now feel anxiety when checking their bank account, even if the balance is fine. That anxiety isn't about the money itself. It's about an unresolved emotional association the brain has connected to the idea of not enough. The feeling arises automatically, and the mind finds a financial story to justify it. These emotional triggers don't just influence how people spend, they influence how they earn, save, invest, and even talk about money. One person avoids looking at their finances because of shame. Another overworks because of a deep fear of losing everything. Someone else constantly gives money away, not from generosity, but from guilt or the need for approval. The behavior is visible. The emotion is hidden. But the emotion is the driver. The brain remembers feelings more than facts. A single moment of embarrassment around money, being declined at checkout, being told we can't afford it, being laughed at for wanting more, can form a deep emotional imprint. That imprint becomes part of a person's money identity, especially if it happened in childhood. And unless that emotion is processed, it becomes a trigger that silently hijacks future decisions. Psychologists refer to these hijacks as emotional schemas, patterns of emotional response that operate without conscious thought. In the context of money, these schemas can manifest as scarcity panic, overspending to self-soothe, or rejecting wealth because it feels emotionally dangerous. The nervous system isn't trying to ruin your finances. It's trying to protect you from feelings you once couldn't handle. That's why standard financial advice often fails. It treats money as math. But emotional triggers are not solved with spreadsheets. They require awareness, compassion, and nervous system regulation. You can't budget your way out of unresolved emotional pain. You must face it, feel it, and then begin to rewire your response. Begin by identifying your primary emotional money trigger. Is it fear? Do you freeze or panic when faced with financial decisions? Is it guilt? Do you feel uncomfortable charging what you're worth? Is it a shame? Do you avoid looking at your finances altogether? Naming the emotion doesn't make it worse, it gives you power. Unnamed emotions control behavior. Named emotions can be transformed. Once identified, these triggers can be interrupted. Breathwork, movement, and grounding techniques can calm the nervous system when old feelings arise. Cognitive reframing can begin to challenge the story underneath the feeling. But perhaps most powerful is the practice of sitting with the discomfort rather than avoiding it. When you can feel the emotion and stay present, the brain learns, this is no longer dangerous. That is how rewiring begins. Your emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. They point to what still needs healing. And once understood, they no longer have to control you. Financial transformation isn't just about doing more, it's about feeling differently. When the emotional trigger is healed, the behavior naturally changes. You don't have to be ruled by reactions born decades ago. You can learn to respond with clarity, calm, and power. But first, you must meet your emotions where they live, not in your bank account, but in your body. Emotional triggers silently shape financial behavior and identity. These triggers are often rooted in unresolved past experiences. Transformation begins with identifying, naming, and regulating emotional responses. What emotional reaction do you most often experience around money, and what past memory might be connected to it? The next time you feel strong emotion around a financial decision, pause and breathe deeply for 60 seconds. Ask yourself, what is this really about? Chapter 7: Rewiring begins with awareness. You cannot change what you cannot see. And when it comes to money, most of what drives behavior is hidden beneath the surface. People think they make financial decisions based on logic, but the brain doesn't work that way. It follows patterns. Those patterns are created by repetition and emotion. Awareness is the only way to disrupt the automatic, and disruption is the first step to change. Every belief, habit, and reaction around money is the result of neural pathways. These are the brain's highways, well-worn routes it takes because they're efficient, not because they're right. If a person has spent years reacting to money with fear or scarcity, those responses become embedded. Over time, they feel natural. But natural is not the same as optimal. Familiarity is not the same as truth. Neuroscience calls this process Hebbian learning. Neurons that fire together wire together. The more often a person thinks, feels, and acts a certain way around money, the more entrenched the pattern becomes. Eventually, that pattern feels like a personality trait. I'm just bad with money. I'm not a saver. I'm always broke. But these are not personality traits. They're practiced responses. And anything practiced can be unpracticed. The first step is catching the pattern in real time. Awareness is more than noticing outcomes. It means observing the moment a belief arises. It's noticing the subtle tightening in your chest when you check your account. It's hearing the voice that says, "You don't deserve that," when you consider raising your prices. It's feeling the urge to spend impulsively and asking, "What emotion am I avoiding right now?" These micro-moments are where rewiring begins. The brain has a structure called the default mode network, responsible for self-referential thinking. When left unchecked, this network runs loops, stories about who you are and what's possible. By becoming aware of these loops, you begin to interrupt them. The interruption doesn't have to be dramatic. A pause is powerful. The space between trigger and reaction is where choice lives. And choice is what reshapes the brain. Awareness isn't judgment. It's observation without shame. You're not watching your behavior to condemn it, you're watching to understand it. That understanding gives you leverage. The moment you see the script, you can choose to edit it. Without awareness, the script runs automatically. With awareness, you hold the pen. One of the most effective awareness tools is tracking. Not just tracking spending, but tracking thoughts, emotions, and patterns. When do you feel most financially anxious? What events trigger scarcity thinking? What environments or people reinforce your old identity? Writing these patterns down turns the abstract into the tangible. And the tangible can be changed. Another powerful tool is language. Pay attention to the phrases you repeat. Language reveals belief. If you often say, "I can't afford that," or "that's too expensive," you're reinforcing limitation. Shifting language to "that's not a priority right now," or "how could I afford that?" opens new neural pathways. The brain doesn't need perfection, it needs repetition. Awareness is not the final step. But it is the doorway to every other step. You cannot rewire what you refuse to notice. You cannot upgrade what you haven't yet seen. The good news is, awareness is free. It requires no tools, no degrees, no permission. Just attention, honesty, and willingness. Right now, your financial behavior is not random. It's a reflection of repeated mental rehearsals. But rehearsals can be rewritten. When you observe your inner world with curiosity instead of criticism, you give yourself a chance to change. And that chance is the beginning of transformation. Financial behaviors are driven by subconscious neural patterns formed through repetition. Awareness allows you to interrupt automatic responses and choose new ones. Observing thoughts and emotions around money is the first step to rewiring them. What is one recurring money thought or behavior you now recognize as a pattern, not a truth? Choose one day this week to track your emotional responses to all money-related decisions, no matter how small. Write down what you notice. Chapter 8: The Wealth Identity Shift. Most people try to change their financial life by focusing on external actions, saving more, spending less, and working harder. But lasting change doesn't happen at the level of behavior. It happens at the level of identity. If a person's internal self-concept is rooted in scarcity, no strategy will stick. The subconscious will always find a way to return to what feels familiar. That's why some people earn more and still end up broke. The problem isn't effort. It's identity. The brain is wired to protect self-consistency. When someone sees themselves as bad with money, or not the kind of person who gets rich, their actions will unconsciously align with that story. Even if they consciously want more wealth, the subconscious sees that new reality as unsafe. The result is self-sabotage, disguised as procrastination, overwhelm, or forgetfulness. It's not sabotage in the malicious sense. It's protection from stepping into a self-image that hasn't been updated. Identity is not fixed. It is formed through repeated thoughts, emotions, and actions. Every experience that reinforced scarcity, every choice that confirmed lack, every emotional association with money has been layered into the architecture of the self. The good news is that architecture can be renovated. But renovation doesn't begin by tearing down walls. It begins by redefining who you believe yourself to be. Wealth is not just something you build, it's something you become. That shift begins by asking not just what wealthy people do, but how they see themselves. People who build lasting wealth see money as a tool, not a threat. They believe they are worthy of abundance, capable of growth, and trusted by life itself. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. Their inner world matches their outer world. To shift identity, the brain needs more than information. It needs immersion. That means surrounding yourself with ideas, language, people, and environments that reinforce your desired self-image. The brain adapts to what it's exposed to. If you consistently place yourself in spaces that normalize wealth, growth, and abundance, your subconscious begins to update its map of what's possible and permissible. But immersion alone isn't enough. The shift must be anchored emotionally. Visualization becomes a powerful tool here. When you imagine yourself as the version of you who earns, spends, saves, and invests with clarity, you activate the brain's mirror neurons. The body doesn't know the difference between real and vividly imagined. Over time, this mental rehearsal creates new neural pathways. The future self becomes familiar, not foreign. Another essential tool is a declaration. Crafting a wealth identity statement, a short, emotionally charged phrase that affirms your new financial self, can help rewire your internal narrative. For example, I am a responsible, powerful steward of money. I create, grow, and multiply wealth with integrity. Repeating such a phrase daily with intention and emotion engages both cognitive and emotional centers of the brain. The key is consistency. Belief follows repetition. Changing identity is not about pretending. It's about remembering who you were before you were taught to play small. The wealth identity is not a costume you put on. It's a truth you reclaim. And when it's integrated, behavior changes effortlessly. You no longer have to force budgeting, planning, or asking for more. Those behaviors flow from a new internal compass. Financial transformation is not just about earning more, it's about becoming someone new. Or rather, becoming more fully who you already are underneath the programming. The shift from scarcity to abundance starts with one simple but powerful decision: to see yourself as someone who is already becoming wealthy, not someday, but now. Identity, not behavior, drives lasting financial change. The subconscious mind resists actions that conflict with its self-concept. Shifting into a wealth identity creates alignment between belief and behavior. What identity have you been unconsciously living out that no longer serves your financial future? Write your own wealth identity statement. Read it aloud daily with intention and emotion for the next 7 days. Chapter 9: Mental Models of the Financially Free. Wealth isn't just the result of effort, it's the result of perspective. The financially free don't merely work harder, they think differently. They operate from mental models that guide their decisions, filter their focus, and shape their habits. These models are internal frameworks, ways of seeing the world that make financial success feel inevitable instead of accidental. When adopted, they act like lenses that bring clarity where there was once confusion. One of the most powerful mental models is leverage. Most people exchange time for money, believing their income is limited by their effort. The financially free understand that time is a fixed resource, but value is not. They focus on creating assets, products, systems, and investments that generate income independent of direct labor. Whether it's rental properties, royalties, or automated businesses, they ask a different question: how can this work without me? That shift from effort to efficiency changes everything. Another foundational model is opportunity cost. Where most people ask, "Can I afford this?" the financially free ask, "What is the long-term cost of this decision?" Every dollar spent today is a dollar not invested tomorrow. That awareness creates intentionality. They delay gratification not out of deprivation, but because they understand compounding, not just of money, but of choices. They know that saying yes to one thing means saying no to another, and they choose accordingly. Financially free individuals also think in terms of return on energy, not just return on investment. They assess how draining or energizing a decision is, recognizing that emotional bandwidth is as important as capital. They guard their focus, manage their emotional state, and make decisions from calm rather than chaos. This emotional discipline helps them avoid reactive spending and seize strategic opportunities. They also use the model of identity congruence. Instead of setting goals disconnected from who they believe they are, they align their goals with their internal narrative. If they see themselves as creators, builders, or stewards, their decisions support that identity. This congruence reduces internal resistance. They don't have to force discipline. They act in accordance with who they believe themselves to be. Another key model is asymmetric risk. They look for situations where the potential upside far outweighs the downside. This thinking governs how they invest, negotiate, and create. Rather than avoiding all risk, they focus on intelligent risk, where the worst-case scenario is manageable, but the best case is transformational. This is how they grow while others play it safe and stay small. Mental models also shape how financially free people handle failure. Where others see loss, they see feedback. They extract lessons, refine strategies, and move forward. This resilience is not accidental. It's wired through their belief that failure is data, not identity. That mindset keeps them in motion while others remain stuck. These ways of thinking aren't exclusive to the wealthy. They're learned. They're practiced. And they can be installed by anyone willing to think deliberately. The key is repetition. The more you apply a mental model, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, it stops being something you use and starts being the way you see. Mental models are not magic. They don't eliminate work. But they ensure your work is directed, intentional, and aligned. They reduce emotional noise and increase strategic clarity. And in a world full of distractions and reactive decisions, that clarity becomes a competitive advantage. Wealth begins with belief, but it is built with perspective. By adopting the mental models of the financially free, you start to see possibilities that others miss. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Your financial reality begins to reflect the new lens through which you view the world, not with more effort, but with better thinking. Financially free people use strategic mental models that shape their daily decisions. Models like leverage, opportunity cost, and asymmetric risk create long-term advantage. Thinking differently precedes earning differently. Which of your current financial decisions would change if you adopted a wealth-oriented mental model? Choose one mental model, like opportunity cost or return on energy, and apply it to a financial decision today. Observe how it shifts your thinking. Chapter 10: Money Scripts That Build Momentum. Every financial behavior starts with a thought, and every thought is shaped by language. The words we silently repeat become scripts, mental shortcuts that the brain uses to navigate money decisions. These money scripts are powerful. Over time, they either reinforce scarcity or activate abundance. Most people are unaware of the scripts running their financial lives. But those unconscious lines are steering everything from how they ask for raises to how they respond to debt. Scripts like "I can't afford it," or "I'm just not good with money" seem harmless, even responsible. But beneath the surface, they embed limitations into the nervous system. Each repetition strengthens the belief and narrows the mind's ability to imagine alternatives. The brain accepts the script as instruction. It doesn't question its origin. It executes. So when a new opportunity arises, the script overrides the possibility with a rehearsed reaction: retreat, reject, reduce. The financially free use different scripts. They ask better questions. Instead of "Can I afford this?" they ask, "How can I create the value to make this possible?" That shift moves the brain from shutdown to problem solving. The language opens space. It invites the mind to scan for options, resources, and solutions. Words don't just describe reality, they design it. This isn't about repeating mantras with blind hope. Effective money scripts are grounded in both belief and behavior. A well-constructed script serves as both a mental cue and a behavioral nudge. For example, the script, "Money flows to me when I create value," doesn't just sound good, it invites a specific mindset. It prompts a person to focus on contribution, creativity, and exchange. And those actions, repeated, create real wealth. To build momentum, scripts must be personalized, present tense, and emotionally resonant. A generic affirmation lacks impact because the brain doesn't believe it. But a tailored, believable script becomes a bridge between current identity and future possibility. The goal isn't to fake confidence. It's to train it. To speak as if the transformation is already underway, because neurologically, that's how the change begins. Consistency is key. The brain rewires through repetition and emotional intensity. Saying a money script once won't shift a lifelong pattern. But embedding it into your daily rituals, morning routines, journaling, and voice recordings creates the frequency needed for change. The brain learns through rhythm. And rhythm builds momentum. Another powerful use of scripts is in pattern interruption. When you catch yourself falling into an old loop, panic, avoidance, or shame, inject a new script. Something simple, like "I make calm financial decisions," can reset the nervous system and guide a different choice. These scripts act like mental steering wheels, giving you direction when the road feels foggy. It's important to understand that old scripts won't disappear overnight. They may show up less often, but they'll try to return, especially under stress. This is not failure. It's a sign that the rewiring is still in process. The goal isn't perfection, it's persistence. Every time you choose a new script, you reinforce the new path. Over time, that path becomes the default. Money scripts aren't magic, but they are powerful. They shape identity, influence emotion, and drive action. And when used deliberately, they build the kind of momentum that transforms not just finances, but the person behind them. You don't need to wait to feel confident to speak as someone who is financially empowered. Speak it now. Train it now. The words you choose today are writing the story you'll live tomorrow. Money scripts are internalized phrases that shape financial behavior and identity. Replacing scarcity scripts with empowering ones activates new neural and behavioral patterns. Repetition and emotional engagement are essential to rewiring. What money script do you hear most often in your thoughts, and what would its empowered opposite be? Write one new, empowering money script. Say it aloud each morning and evening for the next 7 days. Let it become your new financial rhythm. Chapter 11: Building Habits That Attract Abundance. Transformation doesn't depend on occasional breakthroughs. It depends on consistent habits. While beliefs shape identity and scripts shape behavior, it's habits that translate internal change into external results. Without aligned habits, even the most powerful mindset shifts fade over time. Abundance isn't just a mindset, it's a routine. It's built through small, daily actions that compound into freedom. Most people think habits are about discipline, but neuroscience tells a deeper story. Habits are built through loops, cues, routine, reward. The brain latches onto patterns that conserve energy. Once a behavior is repeated enough times, it becomes automatic. This is why someone can overspend, undercharge, or avoid their bank account without conscious intent. Their nervous system is simply following a well-worn path. Rewiring requires building a new path and walking it daily until it becomes the default. The first habit of abundance is intentional attention. Financially empowered people don't avoid money, they face it. They check their accounts without panic. They review their expenses weekly. They know what's coming in and what's going out. This habit isn't about control, it's about clarity. Clarity calms the nervous system and creates space for intelligent action. Avoidance keeps people stuck in reactive cycles. Attention builds proactive power. The second habit is value creation. Wealth is built by solving problems, meeting needs, and creating results for others. People who attract abundance habitually ask, "How can I serve?" They look for ways to increase value through their skills, ideas, time, or energy. This habit doesn't require a business or a brand. It requires a mindset that sees contribution as currency. The more value you deliver, the more income becomes a reflection, not a chase. The third habit is reflective review. People often miss the growth they've achieved because they never pause to measure it. Weekly or monthly financial reflections create awareness, reinforce positive change, and reveal new opportunities. This habit turns your financial journey into a feedback loop. It allows you to adjust without shame and celebrate without arrogance. Reflection builds momentum because it proves progress. And progress sustains commitment. Abundant habits are not glamorous. They're often quiet, simple, and uncelebrated. But they are transformative. Setting a spending limit, transferring 10% to savings, writing out income goals each morning, these actions may seem small, but they signal to the brain that a new identity is in place. That signal gets stronger with each repetition. Eventually, the actions stop feeling forced. They become who you are. Consistency matters more than intensity. It's better to review your finances for 5 minutes a day than to binge plan for 5 hours once a month. The brain responds to rhythm. Small daily actions create emotional safety and reinforce belief. This is how you build an internal system that supports external results. Your environment also matters. Habit formation thrives in spaces that support your goals. If your digital environment is filled with financial chaos, unread bills, open carts, and neglected budgets, it becomes harder to stay aligned. Clean up your digital money life. Automate where possible. Simplify decision-making. Create systems that remove friction and reward consistency. Abundance is not about luck or talent. It's about what you do repeatedly. It's about who you become when no one's watching. And who you become is the sum of your daily choices. The goal is not perfection. The goal is alignment. Aligned habits build trust, not just in systems, but in yourself. That self-trust is the true foundation of lasting wealth. You don't have to earn abundance through struggle. You can attract it through structure. Build the habits now that your future self will thank you for. And let those habits tell a new story, one where wealth is not a wish, but a way of life. Habits turn internal rewiring into tangible financial outcomes. Small, consistent actions shape identity and build momentum. Abundant routines create structure, safety, and sustained results. Which current habit in your financial life reflects scarcity, and what would be its abundant replacement? Choose one small abundance-aligned habit to start today. Review your bank account, automate savings, or write down a money goal. Do it daily for the next 7 days. Take care and be well.